Welcome to the Council of Better Business Bureau's podcast, The Bistro, where we will discuss today's hottest consumer trends, predict the future with consumer experts, and learn how elite businesses and entrepreneurs continue to push the envelope in today's marketplace.
Welcome to the Bistro Podcast, where we discuss a variety of consumer topics and ways they impact the marketplace. I'm your host, Elena Spinola. It's that time of year when many are in the market to buy or sell a home. So today we're going to discuss homeowners associations, how they work, what you need to know before buying a property, and best ways to make the most out of your home ownership in a property that has an HOA. Joining us for this conversation is Vivian Parra, president of Homeowners Protection Bureau, to discuss the importance of educating people on the contractual obligations of a homeowners association.
Thank you for having me.
Sure. Well, can you tell us about the Homeowners Protection Bureau? What is your mission and what it is that you do, and also why it matters?
Sure. Homeowners Protection Bureau, also known as HOPB, is an online platform designed to provide American homeowners living with an HOA with free access to educational articles, tools, and resources. Our mission is simple. We want to help homeowners understand the contractual and statutory obligations that stem from the ownership of HOA properties and help owners make well-informed HOA decisions. We do this by publishing unbiased, fact-based, educational articles and legal analysis written by law experts and professionals. We also give homeowners direct access to state and federal laws and offer owners tools and resources, among other useful information about HOAs. We believe that the information and resources we provide helps owners avoid and resolve HOA problems quickly and amicably.
Yeah, well, I love the fact that, first of all, these are free resources. And of course, that is always the goal, is so that, people can live, in a very happy environment. And if an issue arises, it can be resolved quickly and amicably.
Absolutely.
Yes. What kind of business entity are HOAs, and what kind of business model do they follow to conduct daily operations? And lastly, Vivian, who oversees an HOA?
Sure. In general, homeowners associations are incorporated to function as nonprofit corporations, responsible for the maintenance and preservation of the community it governs and to promote the health, safety, and welfare of its residents, including in providing services such as street lighting, parks, recreation, and utilities. These responsibilities stem from the association's governing documents and applicable laws. Therefore, with regards to the organizational structure and general management, associations must follow its own restrictions and covenants. With respect to HOA oversight, typically, state laws do not delegate rulemaking or enforcement authority over HOAs to any specific government agency. Instead, state statutes anticipate that enforcement by or against an HOA will occur through the judicial system in the county in which the association is located.
I see. Okay, that makes sense, because I was under the understanding that HOAs are a little different and they do vary state by state. And I know, as you just mentioned, the Homeowners Protection Bureau offers education, support, and tools and can help direct individuals towards their state, representation or information that is state by state. But specifically, what kind of information do you share, and how do you implement support to specific communities or homeowners associations or even individuals that come to you looking for a little bit of support or guidance?
That's a great question, Elaine. All associations are different when it comes to specific community rules. The restrictiveness of covenants varies considerably between communities, depending in large part on the nature of the community and where it's located. Although the rules may vary from association to association, the contractual obligation remains the same. When homeowners purchase properties that are governed by HOAs, they have an implied contractual obligation to abide by the terms and conditions of the association's restrictions and covenants. Specifically, homeowners who purchase properties within HOA-governed communities are obligated to pay the association's maintenance fees and follow the specific rules of the community, regardless of the location of the association. Board members must also follow the association's rules when enforcing its restrictions and covenants. HOA boards have a contractual and fiduciary duty to act in the best interest of the association. The information we share provides homeowners with general information about these contractual obligations that exist between homeowners and HOAs. We do not address specific matters relating to the circumstances unique to a particular community or homeowner. For this, we ask homeowners to contact an attorney in their state.
I see. And so while there are covenants, conditions, and restrictions that may be different in different communities through their HOA, within each HOA contract, it should be noted, as you just said, these are legally binding. So it's very important that people become very well acquainted with their covenants, conditions, and restrictions within their contract. Vivian, what are the key elements that homeowners should be aware of to address the various concerns that will arise with regard to the CC&Rs?
It is important for homeowners to understand that the CC&Rs are covenants, conditions, and restrictions of a homeowners association establish the rules for how homeowners may enjoy their property and dictate what happens when owners fail to do so and how an association may enforce those rules. Therefore, all homeowners should get familiar with the association's use restrictions and maintenance requirements, construction and design restrictions, maintenance fees, and most importantly, the rights and powers of the association to understand what an association can and cannot do when enforcing the rules under the community documents.
Okay, so that is a big one, what they can and cannot do. That's something that people for sure should really educate themselves about within their HOA contract. What would you say? Yeah. It's funny, Vivian. My daughter, we were driving in the car and she saw this mailbox that was like this crazy big painted purple. Someone had made it to look like a house or something. It was very cute. And she said, what a cute mailbox. How come we don't have a mailbox like that? How come every mailbox in our neighborhood is exactly the same? Which was a perfect opportunity for me to explain to her that we live within an HOA. And I explained what that means and everything that goes along with it, including, well, if we changed our mailbox to put whatever we wanted, we could, for lack of better terms, get in trouble. Okay, because she's 8, so I just say we get in trouble, which simply means we could get a letter or a fine even. What would you say are some of the most common challenges that arise for homeowners when dealing with their HOA?
Yeah, and that's a great question. Unfortunately, the most common challenge owners face is dealing with HOA violations due to the lack of knowledge and understanding of the community rules and the association's authority to enforce them. This challenge sometimes stems from the owner's lack of access to the association's governing documents or the understanding of the contractual obligations to abide by the association's rules. Therefore, owners should become familiar with the association's governing documents to determine their rights and obligations when living in HOA communities.
Sure. So you can't exactly. So they might not know what all of the rules and regulations are. And what you're saying is they might not even understand how to obtain the document. Is there a general thing that they can do if let's just say they're thinking about doing some kind of maintenance and then they're wondering, am I allowed to do this? Is there an HOA contract? Where is that contract? How do I get access to that contract? What would be your advice there?
Yeah, absolutely. The main thing is getting access to the association's documents. Mm-hmm. If you don't have them, know where to access them. You can contact your county recorder's office to get copies of the association's documents. You can reach out to the association's management company or the board of directors and request a copy of the association's documents. Read and understand them. Determine what the process is in order to ensure that you're following the rules of the community to avoid HOA violations.
Got it. And speaking of those HOA violations, unfortunately, sometimes they have been known to happen from time to time for homeowners, right? I mean, we all kind of hear about it, and perhaps you're even doing it accidentally, like you said. Maybe you just don't know. Vivian, can you share how to properly handle an HOA violation notice? And tell us about the homeowner's right to a fair HOA due process.
Yeah, that is such a great question. It is important to understand what due process, the meaning of due process. Due process means having actual notice of an alleged violation and the opportunity to be heard. Understanding what the association's board must do in terms of providing adequate notice, what rights a homeowner might have to a hearing, and what other processes must be followed by the HOA are important. Therefore, the first step homeowners should take is understanding if a violation actually exists by getting familiar with the association's governing documents. Also, having a clear understanding on the enforcement process is important for homeowners to ensure that they have received adequate notice and in terms of having the right to appear before the board. Very important.
Sure. Can you maybe share an example? I'm sure in your line of work you've heard of a lot of different examples of things, but can you share an example of perhaps a success story from a resolved dispute?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's important to understand that homeowners associations must comply with federal and state laws when enforcing community rules. And federal courts strictly enforce the Fair Housing Act, for instance, against homeowners associations. The 11th Circuit in a Florida case, for example, found that a condo association violated the statute when it sought to remove a PTSD suffering owner's emotional support dog because a dog exceeded the weight restriction. So the association was ordered to pay a substantial amount of money in attorney's fees and legal fees and costs because it failed to comply with the Fair Housing Act. And this is in a case, Bogaita versus Altamonte Heights Condominium Association. So it's a very good example case where homeowners associations, again, must abide by the federal and state laws when enforcing the community rules.
Sure. And that helps it be kind of fair, right? And, it is more black and white, if you will. It's just objective and it's fair. Speaking of, you mentioned this, in this particular case, it involved an emotional dog support, but that got me thinking, this is really an emotional process too, if you will. As you mentioned, this HOAs run as a nonprofit organization. The contracts are legally binding, but at the same time, Vivian, these are where people live, right? So it's not always where people work. When we have our work hat on, we might kind of abide by different rules or resolve things in any kind of certain way. But when this involves our home, where we live, where our families are, and, certain things like wanting to get a pool, do I need to put a fence up? Did I pull in my garbage can? Can I change my mailbox? These are kind of things that people might want to do at their home. And when issues arise or violations occur that are perhaps, you don't know that you're violating one or, whatever the case may be, this can be an emotional process when you have to, resolve it. And another thing to take note is most of the people that run an HOA are typically homeowners within that community. Is that correct?
That's correct. They're volunteer homeowners.
Yeah. So I can see where sometimes issues might come across, because, you never want to think that you need to argue your way, right, to get your way or to kind of resolve something. But sometimes it gets to that point. And that's why you exist, right, to help this process go by
Absolutely.
much smoother. Because it is where we live, and we don't want to be arguing with our neighbors when these HOA rules exist so that we can live harmoniously within our community. So that's really wonderful. As we wrap up here, Vivian, what would you say are your top tips for people living in a community with an HOA and considering perhaps buying a property in one? What would your tips be?
Yeah, sure. Prospective owners should know that covenants are mandatory and strictly enforced by most associations. So it's important to be certain that the community standards are compatible with the owner's lifestyle before buying an HOA property. Mm-hmm. Also, with covenants, you'll want to be sure that you're comfortable with the association's annual assessments before acquiring the property because it's a contractual obligation. And it's an ongoing obligation until the ownership of the property ceases. So that's very important to understand.
Yeah, it sounds like it. So everything I'm hearing you say from the beginning of this conversation until now is just educating yourself, being an informed homeowner, understanding these contracts so that you can live within an HOA in a really smooth fashion. And if there is something that arises that you need to discuss, it can be done kind of within the rules and regulations and done harmoniously, if you will. So educating yourself and being empowered as a homeowner with your HOA is what I'm hearing you say.
Absolutely. That is the goal, making sure you understand your rights and obligations in being able to make educated decisions will help homeowners live a successful life within HOA communities.
Absolutely. That is the key. We really appreciate you joining us on the Bistro Podcast today, Vivian. Thank you. We can't thank you enough for being our guest today.
Well, thank you for having me.
Thank you. Can you share your website for our listeners so they can learn more about the education tips and the tools, support that you shared with us today?
Absolutely. Our website is www.hopb.co. Again, we offer free resources and information written by the industry experts. So it is a resource that is available for all homeowners in the United States, and we hope that they take advantage of this platform.
Absolutely. We hope that they do take advantage of it. Thank you again, Vivian, for joining us. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, Elaine.
Sure. Well, thank you to our listeners as well. My name is Elaine Espinola. I'm the host of the Bistro Podcast. We encourage you to check out all of our episodes. Just search The Bistro on iTunes. Share your feedback with us and give us a rating. Until next time, it has been my pleasure discussing better business and home ownership with you.
You just enjoyed the Bistro Podcast. Be sure to tune in next month for a brand new episode. To learn more about our other shows, visit betterbusiness.blueberry.com. That's betterbusiness.blueberry.com and subscribe. The thoughts and opinions expressed on this podcast are the views and opinions of the guests, not those of the Better Business Bureau, Council of Better Business Bureaus, or program affiliates. This podcast is for information and educational purposes only and is copyrighted with all rights reserved. This podcast is protected by Blueberry's Terms of Service.